an interesting revelation about the judge who was in the ICJ who called for Chagos to be sold off from the UK. Turns out that he also has been calling for the UK to pay 18 trillion quid in slavery reparations. Almost an incomprehensible number. So let's have a little look at this. So an international judge who ruled against the UK on the Chagos Islands has since also called for Britain to pay more than 18 trillion quid in reparations for slavery. Patrick Robinson, a Jamaican judge who previously served on the International Court of Justice, was one of the judges who ruled in 2019 that the UK should hand over the islands as rapidly as possible. The ICJ's ruling has since become one of the main arguments in favour of Britain giving away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius in a deal that would cost the UK billions over 99 years. We still don't know what the exact figure on that is going to be, but apparently it could be up to 18 billion quid. I would say that it is a surrender deal. But anyway, this guy, he was also a leading advocate for Britain to pay slavery reparations to African and Caribbean countries, and co-authored a UN report in 2023 that called for the UK to hand over more than 18 trillion quid. That's an astonishing number, and I think that's absolutely bonkers. And, you know, I've always thought that this idea of handing over the Chagos Islands and essentially paying someone to take the Chagos Islands off us doesn't make sense to me at all. I think it's absolutely bonkers. And then to find out that one of the judges who told the UK that we need to do that is also coming out with this bonkers crap. I mean, it's just absolutely shocking. And to think that at a time when we've got hard-working Brits struggling to pay their bills, we've got pensioners freezing because apparently we don't have the cash to pay their winter fuel allowance, to be handing over a load of money to the Chagos to Mauritius, to take the Chagos Islands off our hands, seems absolutely bonkers, just because some international court of justice with these clearly activist lawyers on it has said that we have to do so. And I wanted to show you, I won't show you the whole thing, but Robert Jemrick put out a good video. It's got 788k views on Twitter, so it's been quite a hit. You know, I'm no massive historian, but I think here he explains quite well just how bonkers this is and how it doesn't make sense. Because if it was the case that we were, you know, horrible colonialists, and Mauritius are the rightful owners of this land, then maybe there would be a case for the deal. But when you hear what the actual history of it is and how much power the ICJ are supposed to have over us, it just seems a bit bonkers. So let's have a little look at this. Hopefully you guys can hear this okay.
In a week where all our focus should be on Ukraine, Keir Starmer is asking Trump whether we can give away the Chagos Islands, British territory, to Mauritius, an ally of China, and pay billions for the privilege. Let me explain what's going on. It was the French who first occupied them until 1814, when Napoleon loses the Battle of Paris, and the French agree to give Mauritius and all of their islands in the region, including Chagos, to the British. Mauritius had no links with Chagos. In fact, the Chagos Islands are more than 2,000 kilometers away from Mauritius. Almost no Mauritians had or have ever lived on Chagos. In fact, the only people who have are a few thousand Chagosians, a small community who Keir Starmer has never met with. So why is Mauritius now claiming sovereignty? Well, the British administered Chagos from Mauritius, but they were separate entities. Originally, New Zealand was administered from Australia, but Australia is not claiming sovereignty over New Zealand. Anyway, let's fast forward to 1965. Mauritius is British, but the British are about to grant independence, and Mauritius is now a democracy. Such was the lack of connection between Chagos and Mauritius, the Mauritian government agreed to sever all ties for just £3 million, 50 million quid in today's money. So the Chagos Islands moved from being a dependency to a British colony to a British overseas territory. To recap, the Chagos Islands have been British sovereign territory since 1814. It's only in 1982 when a far-left party wins power in Mauritius, when their government first makes the claim that the British government coerced them out of their land. This claim is nonsense. When it was first made, a Mauritian leader, a patriot, the man who led the country to independence and is still highly respected, said so. He said he wasn't forced to do a deal. The Chagos was, and I quote, a portion of our territory of which very few people knew, which is very far from here, in which we had never visited. He said claiming Chagos would make Mauritius look ridiculous in the eyes of the world. Fast forward to 2019, and the International Court of Justice issues an opinion saying that the 1965 agreement was unlawful and the British should give up Chagos as soon as possible. This is the core of Labour's argument, but there are so many problems with it. Most importantly, the ICJ's opinion was non-binding, advisory. It said so itself. A fundamental principle of international law is that these judgments are non-binding unless the countries themselves, the parties, agree for the dispute to be settled by the court.
So there we go, won't show you the rest of the video, but you get a taste there of a bit of the historical background and how much power the ICJ has over us. So it looks like, if Robert Jenrick's analysis there is right, that the history says that Mauritius has absolutely no right to this land. So we're handing them this land, getting rid of a key military base there, potentially, unless we chuck them a load of money. And it seems as though we've got the Labour Party saying, oh, we've got to do this because some international court of justice with activist lawyers on it has said we must do so, but it's not binding at all. So, I mean, Kane, why do you think that the Labour Party is continuing on with this Chagos deal? It's clearly proven to be very unpopular, at least from what I've heard, amongst the electorate, as well as finding out that one of the judges that was involved in this ruling is also making absolutely bonkers reparations requests. We also found out that the Prime Minister of Mauritius that was involved with signing off the deal with the UK before he lost his election, that he's all in trouble for alleged corruption, potentially stealing of funds. He was taken into court. It's all looking very messy. Do you think that the government will continue and go ahead with the Chagos deal, or do you think after all this backlash that they'll make a U-turn?
Well, our only hope for it to be scuppered is Donald Trump, because, you know, at the end of the day, this is the most strategic base in the Indian Ocean, you know, if not in the eastern part of the world for us and for so many people. For the West, really. It is just absolutely bonkers, this deal. And I know I previously, in my last role, I was working for Priti Patel, and I mean, Priti's been leading the charge on this in Parliament alongside Nigel Farage and others. But, you know, the idea that we own something, we're going to give it away, but we're going to give it to someone and we're going to pay them to take it off of our hands. It's the worst deal. Actually, it's the shittest deal in history. It is the shittest deal in history. I literally cannot understand it. And I can't wait for Donald Trump to meet Keir Starmer, because he's going to say, here's a copy of my book, The Art of the Deal, mate. Have a read of it. Because after this, I honestly don't know how we can honestly let these people negotiate for us ever again. You know, when Labour negotiate for Britain loses. That is the end of it. It's a real shame, because I do feel that we are in retreat at the moment as a country. We really are in retreat. You know, we're listening to, you know, international judges when at the end of the day we don't have to, but this is, you know, Robert Jenrick says it in the video, this is what their world belief is. You know, this is Starmer's world belief. He believes in, you know, international law being, you know, paramount, and that, you know, we should all, you know, they believe in, you know, the European super state. They believe in a world super state, these people. You know, they want socialism across the world on steroids. You know, this is their master plan. And I really think we've got to wake up to the fact that these people are dangerous and they are going to ruin our country.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting there that, you know, you go as far as to say Keir Starmer and the people ruling us are dangerous. And some people might say that's hyperbole, but I would say at a time when, you know, we're we need to be negotiating with Putin and various other threats. You know, sadly, there are a lot more wars going on in the world than I would like there to be. I don't trust Keir Starmer to negotiate for this country at all. If, God forbid, we did end up with an actual proper threat towards Britain, I would not trust that man to lead this country and keep us safe. If he is stupid enough, him and his good mate David Lammy are stupid enough to hand over a piece of territory that is ours and pay them money to take it off us, I just don't trust this guy at all. The small bit of hope that I have is the fact that we've actually got Donald Trump in the White House. If it was Kamala Harris and Keir Starmer leading the West, I mean, I think already we are seeing the Trump effect very quickly. Hamas didn't talk about handing over hostages until they heard that Trump was going to be getting in, and then suddenly the tune changed. And I spent a bit of time out in the Middle East last year, and I think people don't realise how much of an impact weak leaders in the West is having on other areas of the world, because you speak to people in that area who are more close to it, and they say, yeah, of course Hamas did what they did on October 7th because Biden was in power. They knew they wouldn't get away with it if someone like Trump was in, but they just thought, there's this sleepy old guy in the White House, we can get away with doing whatever we want. But as soon as Trump's in power, they won't mess about. And I'm interested to see if, when Keir Starmer meets with Trump, if free speech is going to come up. Everyone's talking about Ukraine because that's the hot topic in the news at the moment. That's the main thing they'll probably be talking about. But we're hearing these rumours of potentially Britain having to face tariffs if the UK government doesn't agree to change their laws on free speech. I really hope that Donald Trump puts pressure on Keir Starmer to do that. Connie, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, clearly, as we all know, Starmer is just it's all an ideological thing. Like you were saying, like Jenna was saying, the ICJ is simply, it's not binding. It's just because we know this about Starmer. He's a manager. He's not a leader. He likes to follow the rule book. And if that's what an international court has said, why on earth would he do anything differently? I was speaking to someone else who's quite involved in one of the factions of Labour, and he was telling me that the way that Labour politicians think, it's very much not about the country but about the Labour Party and Britain. They want Britain to be Labour first rather than Britain as a country to be first. Like, for them it is about making, I guess you could say socialist, but I know that lots of people who call themselves socialists would not think that Keir Starmer's government is anywhere near socialism. But yeah, they're very interested in just spreading their ideology rather than thinking about what's best for the country. And that is such a shame. We've got a parliament full of so many young politicians. They're obviously all going to be career politicians. They're not going to be deviating from what the whip's telling them. So we really don't have much hope with such a large majority of such fresh MPs. So yeah, Trump is really the only hope when it comes to things like Chagos. And it is particularly, like, I'm the sort of person who, even when I was young, when I was a child, my mum purposely made sure that at stressful times, if it was to do with war, that the news was not on so that I couldn't hear what was going on. And this is probably one of the scariest times in my lifetime when it comes to the potential for war. And like, I completely agree with you. I'd be absolutely petrified by the thought that Keir Starmer is the one leading us through this extremely sort of perilous time.
Yeah, he's definitely no Winston Churchill, that's for sure.
Who would you guys rather at the moment? Like, obviously we have Nigel, but in terms of, I was just thinking back at past politicians, I felt a lot safer in Boris's hands. I don't know what you think about that.
In Boris's hands?
I think he was very much more well respected on the international stage. He might not be at home. Yes. I think on the international stage he was respected.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Definitely more respected on the international stage. I mean, he's a very likable character. I mean, that's why he got such a big majority, really, and was able to also win as mayor in London in a lefty capital city, is because he's just got such amazing charm and charisma. So when he goes and meets other leaders, I'm sure they'll be very impressed by his charm. I mean, he's a very, I think, as we saw when he was in power, he's a very sort of chaotic, disorganised leader. So I'm not one of the people begging for Boris to come back, but I'd take him in a heartbeat over Keir Starmer, that's for sure.
I heard him on BBC with Nick Ferrari the other day, and I just thought, God, I just wish he was the guy. Like, talking about Ukraine, like, obviously he was there at the start when it all kicked off, and it felt very much more secure with him.
Well, I think the thing is with Boris is he is a leader. You know, love him or hate him, you know, he's done good things, he's done bad things, but he is a leader, and he's got that gung-ho spirit, he's got that British spirit that we all can rally around. And, you know, look what happened, you know, yesterday with with Keir Starmer announcing the defence spending. Gets up on stage, he looks sad to be announcing a policy that is very popular amongst people about increasing defence spending. He looks very sad and glum, you know, blah, 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 and he keeps reading from this bloody piece of paper.
I know, the piece of paper is so
terrible.
awful.
Oh, the speaking ability is just appalling.
It's terrible.
I mean, Liz Truss was bad at public speaking, but he's probably even worse. Go on, Kane.
Going back to the Chagos situation, the Defence Secretary today could not rule out that the money from the increase in the defence budget could go to paying Mauritius for Chagos. He couldn't rule it out. This is how mad this government is. This is how dangerous they are, that we're going to increase the defence budget and then we're going to give it away to Mauritius potentially.
And we've seen with Doge, which is, you know, still only just starting its mission to uncover government waste. That I know. We're seeing a lot of revelations about foreign aid just being completely wasted, or, you know, being used in very corrupt ways. And given that we have just found out that the Prime Minister of Mauritius at the time of the deal being organised in October, that he's potentially been hiding a load of money, I'm thinking, well, maybe he thought, yeah, I fancy some new Rolexes, I fancy some more cash. I'll tell Keir Starmer that he has to hand me the Chagos Islands and that he needs to pay me to do it, and he's an idiot, so he'll agree to it.